Okay, hi, my name is Suzanne Levesque, and I recently started splitting my time between New York and Berlin, and yeah, fly back and forth a lot, and whatever the time and my finances permit, I try to create work um, in both countries, both continents. I am initially I started out as a painter and a drawer, figurative. So this is large scale painting, figures. Yeah, my creatures are always very curious and tragic and absurd. I always like to have them alone in the image, so there's a sense of longing. At some point, it wasn't enough for me to paint, so I still wanted to continue producing these images because I find a lot of satisfaction in making them, but the topics I wanted to explore didn't feel like they fit into the image. I wanted to create immersive experiences, so I started to take the paintings and the drawings I made and put them into a space differently. Here I had a hanger, an airplane hanger, and I had about 800 drawings that I suspended from the ceiling. So there was one big immersive space and little blips and pings of creatures or moments that you could walk through differently and they created their own stories. So there's a little drawing and it's pricked and sewn. And I explored topics like vulnerability and solitude and loneliness and the fleetingness also of the human condition, trying to hold on to that by making these images. There I had a harpist play within the installation. I also had an orchestra play, avant-garde music. They were spread out throughout the hangar. And created something new through that, through the multidisciplinary approach. Here I had the opportunity to have little tiny drawings. They're about this big, kind of creep throughout the whole installation of a museum in Serbia, like a rash. They were on the sides and up the walls and in little corners and stuff. And I also pricked them all with little wires and hung them up. Here's a kind of a bad picture of them creeping along the walls. That's a blown up version of this post-stamp size drawing. I played with beds, salt dough mattresses that I made. This was a show I had in New York where I had these beds and these willowing sheets above them. You can't really see it, but they're like these sheets, and I drew figures onto them, and they were very wistful and also, referencing the vulnerability and the the way that things just float away. Here you can see them from above. They're kind of floating from a top, from just loosely attached. It was in February. It was very cold and very windy, and the elements were wreaking havoc on them. There you can see one of the figures. Okay, this is my current project, and it's always with projects, they sometimes take a long time, especially if it's a vague notion that you're kind of following over, over years and months. I just read about something called the Zeigarnik effect, and that made me feel better because it says that it's sometimes good to leave projects unresolved, to have them percolating in the back of your mind. So procrastinating is actually a good thing. You kind of wait, and the longer something stays with you, the better it is. If you finish a project, then the brain finishes too, and you don't really progress with those thoughts. So this is a project that has been open for a long time, and it started very innocently. Oh yeah, this is me, like all of us having, doodles. It always starts with doodles, and most of them don't progress anywhere, but these are doodles that nobody else except me understands. And it started here. This is in one of my shows, and this is a little corner where I, for some reason, floated some drawings in little water beds. And I liked that idea. I liked including water as this massive topic into my work. I just wasn't sure how. First, I thought maybe I could do it in the belly of a ship, like have a show in the belly of a ship. Didn't work out because of a lot of restrictions due to safety of people visiting. So that's something I'm still working on, but it's it hasn't really gone anywhere. For one show, it was nice because it was in a castle that had a moat, and I asked them, "Hey, can I do something with the moat?" And they actually allowed me to float beds there in that moat, and they allowed me to keep the beds floating there for a half a year. And there were big carps in the moat, and the moat was kind of stinky, and so it was perfect for all my topics that I wanted to kind of convey. Here's a film. It's just 1 minute, so. So there's the production of that. There's the production of that. That was incredibly fun, and I was very fortunate that people were willing to help me out filming it. We went around with a boat, and then it started raining, and it was really bad for the camera equipment. And so I've been playing around with this idea, and the final version of what I really want to do is have a show in a body of water. And yeah, this is the beds. One more time, they were frozen in. So I took some drawings that I had done on vellum, and I threw them into the East River to see what would happen, and to see, how they would be engulfed and what would happen to them, and just as a kind of a self-destructive thing, destroying my own work that I've labored over for hours. Didn't really want to do anything with it. I just wanted to see, what feelings would come up with me doing that, and what new ideas would come up. Here I floated them in a lake. Here I had that element of it in a show. just playing around with it. Nothing final. It's just a group show, or I just want to see, how it would look after they're in the water for a few weeks. These are two of the drawings that have floated. And I would like to do that scattered throughout the water, throughout a body of water, and submerge sculptures and objects in the water and have people kind of like look for it, or go around in a boat and look for the pieces. So here I'm playing with a little sculpture. And it's a lot of it is it's me. A lot of it is just playing and thinking about it. I think that's the idea of this whole series, is talking about what we know as artists are these moments where you don't have the answers, or you haven't solved it yet. You haven't solved the problem yet. And this is one of these things. This is something that is not developed yet. These are just ideas that are floating around, just little concepts that I've grasped or haven't grasped, or just gathered in my head or in various notebooks. And maybe someday this will come to fruition. Yeah. Thank you.
So the arts that you floated in the water, you rescued them after, right? You didn't let them drop to the bottom of whatever body of water it was, right? You rescued them after. That was some of the works you showed, right?
Yes, I rescued most of them. I had little fishing lines on them, because I'm not, I guess, not pure enough as an artist to not rescue them. Yes, the idea was, just to play with my emotions towards that, and also to see if the water, or if them getting scratched up in the water and getting algae on them would add anything to the image.
Did you find that it did?
Yes, it did. It did. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Also just the decay of something that you leave in water for months or weeks or however long is really interesting.
Right.
What can you do with something that's so incredibly pristine to yourself, and just cast it off like that and see what,
Do you think you could ever actually do that with a piece of your work without having a fishing line attached to
it? Like a message in a bottle? Yeah. Throw it out and see what happens if it ever gets back to me. Thought about that. I just I have to find a drawing I don't really like, then I'll do it.
Yeah. I feel you. Second question, very short. So you mentioned maybe showing it in the belly of a ship, but you're still kind of working through that. I mean, is that your ideal location? Are you still wanting to do something that's maybe not quite as contained, maybe a river or a lake or a moat or something?
Yeah, both. I mean, it depends on if I do have a ship, that would be very exciting. I just, the whole concept of it, I really don't even know what it is, but just the that you're in there and there's this pressure from the water from the outside. I don't know. There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to unpack that now, but
do you have a preference for which one you want?
Both. Okay. Both are different things that I find interesting, but of course it depends on what the body of water would be.
Okay.
So if somebody has a swimming pool, that would be a different project,
right,
than just having it in a river.
Right.
I was thinking of maybe having something float down a river and attaching a little GoPro to it and just watching it, what will happen.
Yeah.
The Danube River was one of those things I wanted to do it in. And I thought, what would happen, if I try to retrieve it a day later,
right?
Drive after it and see where it's landed.
Yeah.
So those are kind of interesting things, because I think as an artist, you always kind of set your work out into the world. And this is a very active way of doing it, or a very planned way of doing it, and seeing, what happens next.
So it's a bit process based on maybe what happens as far as what body of water you're able to access for your work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, people don't like it when you put junk into their water.
I get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I noticed that a lot of your work is very almost impressionistic, this kind of floating dreamlike quality. And is that like a common thread, do you feel, that runs through your inspirations, this kind of idea of like you're coming back to ideas later, this kind of mulling over and this almost meditative
Yes.
process? Is that something that you draw from?
Yes, I mean, a lot of it is also kind of questioning consciousness or our own consciousness. And I find it very interesting, this like fever dream, where you're not quite sure what you can rely on, what is real, and just the way you perceive yourself or your own physical appearance or being in relation to everything else. And I think water underlines that, just because it suspends time a little bit. It's ancient. It has a whole lot of connotations, but because it has so many connotations, it doesn't really have any connotations. It's so ubiquitous. And yes, it does reflect that.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Thank you.
Well, you kind of probably answered my question, but what exactly do the beds symbolize for you?
Yes, I mean, beds in art, there are a lot of beds in art, and it's a very seductive symbol. For me, it's, of course, there are all these, you're born, you're conceived in a bed, you're born in a bed, you die in a bed, you suffer in a bed, you're happy in a bed. Everything, everybody goes back to their natural state. Everybody sleeps the same. Nobody's glamorous when they're sleeping. Well, I guess maybe you are, but Marilyn Monroe was. I don't know. But I also find, the mystery of a bed, like your safe little cocoon, your nest, and underneath are the monsters, that you kind of ride through or glide through life in your little bed. As long as you can be in bed and tucked in, you're okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, you mentioned that you used vellum. Why did you choose this kind of a material, and was it a real one or not?
It wasn't real vellum. It wasn't hide or anything. It's plastic. I chose plastic because it won't disintegrate right away. Mm-hmm. And also, some of it can be very very see-through, like not very opaque. And it's kind of weird, you could see. Like it changes color when you put it in water, and then the dark comes through and stuff like that. So you can play around with it a lot, and it's very forgiving because you can scrub it and erase it and scratch it and grind it and all kinds of stuff, and it's good.
Thank you. Any more questions?
What's your workday like? A typical workday as an artist?
Well, it depends greatly on what I'm working towards. I think I have times of intense production where I'm just 100% focused on working, where I just work 24/7 basically. And then I have like the regular days. I do something that is, it's kind of like work foreplay, where I just kind of wander around and look at things, and maybe I'll drink a coffee, I'll walk around town a little bit, and then I get to work at some point in the late afternoon or in the evening. And I used to joke that I had a 9-to-5 job, which is 9 in the evening to 5 in the morning. So I don't know. I like working at night because there are not many distractions. I have the feeling that nobody can call me because they're hopefully sleeping, and I don't know. There's something nice about the night. Nothing that comes up. You can work open end ideally. So I spend the day doing, tasks, running errands, and then I slowly settle down and get to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question at the back.
Thank you. First of all, what you did with beds, really gorgeous.
Thank you.
And the way you expressed your point of view on beds, really philosophical. I never even thought like somebody could look at beds in such a way that there are so many things associated with beds. Do you have any other objects in your head which are inspiring you and which you also have a similar philosophical point of view on?
I think, well, a lot of things like cloth or pillows. Well, I guess that's also bed related, but just cloth, fabric, because it's so close to your skin and it kind of absorbs things, from the human body, and it's also a very intimate thing, and it's fun to draw, paint. Usually I'm usually just only about the human figure, kind of out of context, just right here in the middle. Oh yeah, she also has cloth. And I used to have that with sinks, actually. When I went to college, I had this obsession with sinks, because I just thought they were very beautiful objects, and the way they were intertwined with the piping, and it kind of these weird relationships with pipes and water and stuff. Yeah, I forgot about that.